Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are going to study chapter 2, lesson 2, bacteria. Bacteria live almost everywhere, under rocks, in the ocean, and all over your body. Also, they are very small. Bacteria were first discovered by Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He made microscopes as a hobby. If Leeuwenhoek had owned a modern high-powered microscope, he would have seen that the single-celled organisms were bacteria. Bacteria are prokaryotes. The genetic material in their cells is not contained in a nucleus. In addition to lacking a nucleus, the cells of bacteria also lack many other structures that are found in the cells of eukaryotes. As you can see in front of you, this is the structure in a typical bacterial cell. Most bacterial cells are surrounded by a rigid cell wall that protects the cell. Just inside the cell wall is the cell membrane, which controls what materials pass in and out of the cell. The region inside the cell membrane, called the cytoplasm, contains a gel-like fluid that moves structures throughout the cell. Located in the cytoplasm are tiny structures called ribosomes, where proteins are produced. The cell's genetic material is also found in the cytoplasm. It contains the instructions for all of the cell's functions. A bacterial cell may also have a flagellum, which is a long web-like structure that helps a cell to move. If you were to look at bacteria under a microscope, you would notice that most bacterial cells have one of three basic shapes: spherical, rod-like, or spiral. Bacteria also vary greatly in size. The largest known bacterium is about as big as the period at the end of a sentence. An average bacterium, however, is much smaller. Let us learn now how do bacteria get food, get energy, and reproduce. All bacteria need certain things to survive and reproduce. Bacteria get energy by either making food or eating other organisms, and can reproduce asexually or sexually. Let us talk about obtaining food. Some bacteria are autotrophs, which mean that they can make their own food. Some capture and use the sun's energy as plants do. Others, such as bacteria that live deep in mud, do not use the sun's energy. Instead, these bacteria use the energy from chemical substances in their environment to make their food. Some bacteria are heterotrophs and cannot make their own food. These bacteria must consume other organisms or the food that other organisms make. Heterotrophic bacteria consume a variety of foods, from milk and meat, which you might also eat, to decaying leaves on a forest floor. But how bacteria get energy? Like all organisms, bacteria need a constant supply of energy to carry out their functions. This energy comes from food. The process of breaking down food to release energy is called cellular respiration. Like many other organisms, most bacteria need oxygen to break down their food, but a few kinds of bacteria do not need oxygen for respiration. In fact, those bacteria die if oxygen is present in their surroundings. For them, oxygen is a poison that kills. One of the characteristics of living things is that they are able to reproduce or make more copies of themselves. Bacteria reproduce when they have plenty of food, the right temperature, and other suitable conditions. Bacteria can reproduce asexually or sexually. Bacteria sometimes reproduce asexually by a process called binary fission, in which one cell divides to form two identical cells. To prepare for binary fission, a bacterial cell grows to almost twice its size. Then it duplicates its genetic material and splits into two separate cells. Each new cell receives a complete copy of the parent's genetic material. As a result, the offspring are genetically identical to the parent. Binary fission increases the number of bacteria. But sometimes bacteria reproduce sexually by a process called conjugation. During conjugation, one bacterium transfers some of its genetic material into another bacterium through a thin thread-like bridge. After the transfer, the bacteria separate. Conjugation results in bacteria with new combinations of genetic material. When the bacteria divide by binary fission, the new genetic material passes to the offspring. Conjugation doesn't increase the number of bacteria as binary fission does. However, it does result in bacteria that are genetically different from the parent cells. Sometimes conditions in the environment become unfavorable for the growth of bacteria. For example, food sources can disappear, water can dry up, or the temperature can fall or rise dramatically. Some bacteria can survive harsh conditions by forming endospores. An endospore is a small, rounded, thick-walled resting cell that forms inside a bacterial cell. It encloses the cell's genetic material and some of its cytoplasm. Because endospores can resist freezing, heating, and drying, they can survive for many years in harsh conditions. Endospores are also light, that a breeze can lift and carry them to new places. If an endospore lands in a place where conditions are suitable, it opens up. Then the bacterium can begin to grow and multiply. Let us talk now about the role of bacteria in nature. Do you know that most bacteria are either harmless or helpful to people? In fact, in many ways, people depend on bacteria. Bacteria are involved in oxygen and food production, in health maintenance and medicine production, and in environmental cleanup and recycling. As autotrophic bacteria use the sun's energy to produce food, they release oxygen into the air. Billions of years ago, Earth had very little oxygen. Scientists think that autotrophic bacteria were responsible for first adding oxygen to Earth's atmosphere. Today, the distant offspring of those bacteria help keep oxygen levels in the air stable. The activities of helpful bacteria produce some foods. For example, bacteria that grow in milk produce dairy products such as buttermilk and yogurt. Some bacteria cause food to spoil when they break down the food's chemicals. Spoiled food usually smells or tastes foul and can make you very sick. Pasteurization is most often used to treat beverages such as milk and juice. During pasteurization, the food is heated to a temperature that is high enough to kill most harmful bacteria without changing the taste of the food. Scientists use certain bacteria to make medicines and other substances. By manipulating the bacteria's genetic material, scientists can cause bacteria to produce human insulin. Although healthy people can make their own insulin, those who with some types of diabetes cannot. Many people with diabetes need to take insulin daily. Because of bacteria's fast rate of reproduction, large numbers of insulin-making bacteria can be grown in huge vats. The human insulin they produce is then purified and made into medicine. Some bacteria help to clean up Earth's land and water. Certain bacteria can convert the poisonous chemicals in oil into harmless substances. Scientists have put these bacteria to work cleaning up oil spills in oceans and gasoline leaks in the soil under gas stations. Some bacteria that live in soil are decomposers. Decomposers are organisms that break down large complex chemicals in dead organisms into small simple chemicals. Decomposers are nature's recyclers. They return basic chemicals to the environment for other living things to reuse. Some decomposing bacteria spend months breaking down the chemicals in the dead leaves. The broken down chemicals mix with the soil and can then be absorbed by the roots of nearby plants. Another type of recycling bacteria, called nitrogen-fixing bacteria, help plants survive. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria live in the roots of certain plants, such as peanuts, peas, and soya beans. These helpful bacteria change nitrogen gas from the air into nitrogen products that help plants to grow. Plants are unable to make this conversion on their own. Therefore, nitrogen-fixing bacteria are vital to plants' survival. Now you already know what are bacteria, how do bacteria get food, energy, and reproduce, and what is the role of bacteria in nature. I hope that you understand the lesson. See you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.